Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, the only show on Indian television right now where you, the MSME, get center stage. This is ET Now's special daily initiative to give MSMEs and entrepreneurs the opportunity to be front and center on every industry and area that matters to you. Tonight, we're talking about the role of fintech, the opportunities, the challenges, how small businesses are accessing finance and also government regulation in the space. To discuss that, a very special panel with us here tonight. We have Srinivas Perry, Senior Director at Nasscom, Bipinpreet Singh, Founder and CEO at MobiKwik, Manavjeet Singh, Founder and CEO at Rubik, and Adil Shetty, Founder and CEO of BankBazaar. Gentlemen, thank you all very much for being with us here tonight to talk about what's really happening in the fintech space and to talk more importantly about how small businesses are accessing digital, are accessing finance, and how fintech is growing in India. As always, like we do on Leaders of Tomorrow, I want to talk to our entrepreneurs first. Talk very briefly. I know your three businesses don't need any introduction. We've had you previously on Leaders of Tomorrow, but very quickly, if you can introduce what you do.
Absolutely. So BankBazaar is an online marketplace that enables consumers to paperless access loans, credit cards, mutual funds, insurance products. We're partnered with 75 financial institutions whose products are available on our platform, and we receive about 44 million visitors every quarter.
My name is Bipinpreet Singh. I am the founder and CEO of MobiKwik. MobiKwik is today building the smart money app for 260 million consumers and about 5 million SMEs throughout the country by making payments and financial services accessible and reachable to all these people.
I'm Manav from Rubik. In fact, we believe for every borrower there's a lender somewhere. So we created this marketplace where they can discover each other. So far we have serviced 1 lakh plus customers and we disbursed more than 2,000 crores worth of loans, and we work with almost 80 financial institutions and catering to each and every segment, specifically SMEs.
Okay. While I do know that the fintech space in India is booming, a report that I was reading as of 2015 said that most customers are accessing their loans through traditional means. In fact, only 14% are using digital means to be able to get loans. What is really happening in this space? How is that likely to grow? Have things started changing in the last couple of years? And if so, what perhaps is the major growth driver behind that? And I want to throw it open to the panel.
So maybe I can start. I think there are a couple of key trends that we are seeing at BankBazaar. So firstly, in the last 12 months, right, traffic has more than doubled.
Is that because of demonetization?
We saw a big spike up post demonetization. So I think prior to demonetization, there was growth. But post demonetization, right, we actually saw a spike from about 9 million visitors a month to 17 million visitors a month post demonetization. So definitely that drove it. And I think in this new generation of consumers, whenever you think about a financial product, you open up your mobile phone and you start, the process of getting information or accessing a product. Secondly, what we're finding is because of the Aadhaar India stack, which is a great ecosystem that the government of India has put out there, we're able to innovate and deliver a paperless experience. And one interesting statistic is 60% of the consumers on BankBazaar for unsecured loans are going down the paperless route, doing the eKYC, the e-sign, rather than going via the normal route. So definitely the trending is there. Okay,
Manojit, you were saying something.
I've seen specifically in retail, some segment of customers are going paperless, but the largest challenge remains in SME we have seen. The customers are not really going online because that particular segment, when they're looking for a loan, of course, as we know, that $300 billion plus gap in SMEs is massive. But they still rely on their financial advisor or their chartered accountant. So what we're as a company, what we have done is we have made a product for them. So we're the chartered accountants, so we're enabling them through the tech-enabled platform. So we are getting that particular product in front of the customer. You can fill in the details and your details are electronically transferred to the bank. So we're trying to crunch the timelines. For a SME loan, it can take around 60-70 days today. So, and a lot of times we have seen that 15 to 20 days sometimes can be just wasted a lot of times in getting the documents together, getting the right financial institution. This is something you're crunching in a matter of hours.
Sure. Just before I come to you, because I do know that your company has probably seen one of the biggest changes over the last 14 months, as Adil was saying, I want to bring in a Nasscom perspective and talk about what has been the primary growth driver. Yes, the government has been pushing it, but besides that, there also has to exist the innovation, there also has to exist the technology in the companies.
See, I'll probably touch upon a couple of really broad macro trends that are driving this. While technology, the spread of technology and connectivity is definitely a factor, I think for me the two important factors which I've seen everywhere in the world and which is also very visible in India, the first one is the demographics at a very broad level, because there is this, the millennials, the centennials who are extremely comfortable with technology, and for them, anything has to be on their phone, right? So that demographic is looking at finance as a different, in a different perspective altogether. And the second important thing that's happening is socialization of finance, right? Till about a few years ago, when you thought about a loan, you thought about a bank, right? And you thought about going to a financial institution, right? But I think the mindset is changing, and which is broadly what I call socialization of finance, which people are saying democratization, okay, right? So in that sense, right? So I think these two trends are driving it, and as the technology kind of spreads to the broader, broader across the country, right? I think we'll see a growing trend in this.
Okay, Bipin, let me ask you what's perhaps an unpopular question on demonetization. Most experts who've spoken with us argue that demonetization perhaps wasn't all beneficial for the Indian economy. The Indian economy would have moved to a cashless, mode of payment and system in its own time, and perhaps the Indian economy should have been allowed to do that. Your view on that?
So look, I am not an economist, so I can't comment on GDP related questions or what is the impact it has had on other sectors. I can comment on payments and fintech, and I can say that there couldn't have been a bigger impact in the area of payments and fintech than demonetization, simply because it's not one event which has led to adoption and less cash and people adopting to digital platforms, but it has been a very concerted effort by the government at its level. Not just the union government, but the state government and the industry and the ecosystem. The presence of payments that you see today, or the fintech that you see today, maybe 10 months after demonetization, it would have taken easily 24 to 36 months, if not more.
Okay, Srini, Bipin was saying non-traditional modes of accessing finance. What kind of innovations are you seeing as part of Nasscom, as part of the 10,000 Startups program, when it comes to the fintech space?
I think I'll again stress one point which Bipin made is alternate credit scoring. Right? The traditional way to look at it was like, again, at the beginning, I think today somebody was mentioning, like, for you a few years ago to apply for a loan and get a loan out was a laborious process, right? You needed multiple, pieces of document, and it took its own time, and you were not even sure you would get it, right? But now I think, like many of these people are using, they have access to a lot of other data, right? So it could be social data, it could be like related to their purchase purchase habits or whatever it is, right? And this is huge amount of data. So I think a lot of fintechs, one innovations coming is are able to build models around data with data, which is giving them better insight into the consumers, and probably like is kind of taking finance to the reach of many more consumers who were limited by just when it was only the banks.
Okay, Adil, Srini previously was saying about 80 to 85% of the internet using population is not comfortable using English. So I want to talk about the role of vernacular, and I can ask the two of you gentlemen to comment on that as well. The mobile, of course, is changing how things are being done. Digital, and then the further wave has been the mobile as well. What role, one, does the mobile play now when it comes to fintech, and what role will fintech in the vernacular languages play? Is there enough happening in that space?
So let me cover the first question, and then I think the panelists have built and we have experience here. In terms of the mobile, right, there is a firm belief that the mobile is going to be the democratizing element in all of financial services. So if we want to access every tier 3 area, if we want to access every village, we don't need to set up a kiosk. We don't need to set up a branch Today, right, there is a prevalence of a mobile phone in every hand, and with what's happening with data prices, right, usage of data has gone exponential. So I think what a lot of fintech companies are working on is saying the government has this India stack. This India stack offers you a series of features like electronically authenticating yourself, electronically signing documents, electronically paying someone using UPI, and these are very simple to use features.
Okay, let me come to you on that, Manavjit.
So in terms of how I look at it in terms of the customers we service, whether it's retail or SME, retail to a large extent is true that these customers are accessing the information, you can get an approval, but till the time we do it with that signature on the application, I think it's definitely not, the job is not done. Second part is like in SME specifically, we have seen that not even 1%, even less than 1% are accessing this through online. So they still
what is going to then change that?
So what we're doing, so in terms of when I never confuse the online and the leveraging technology. So what we're trying to do is in terms of if they are not coming online, how you can leverage technology and bring them, so in sort of, you can say it's like assisted online modeling. So we're bringing them from offline to online. So if the first transaction happens, you have to assist them, so use the technology and bring them on board, but after that next time they can transact. But I still feel that the ecosystem, the way it's evolving, while we talk about a lot of stuff which is happening, but if you look at the percentage of transaction happening, it's not even half a percentage is actually paperless or where it's not signed. India is still far away from that. So it's a transition which is happening. There's a lot of good work which is happening. But I still feel specifically in SME I highlight because where we have very closely, the long way to go. And as far as the language is concerned, it definitely helps. Our experience with these customers has been, so they prefer to see that particular format in their own language where they're comfortable with. And it definitely helps because all you're trying to do is you're trying to bring them on board from offline to online. And this is one barrier somewhere we have seen is language and simplify the whole process. This is something which as a company we have worked a lot on.
Gentlemen, we'll take a very quick break, but much more on the other side on the special panel on FinTech. Do stay tuned. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight we're talking about FinTech, the opportunities and challenges, and also government regulation in the space. So you raised an interesting point, and Shri, maybe I could ask you to comment on that. Two things, in fact, that I want to talk about. One is the role that infrastructure plays. Manavjit was talking about, sort of encouraging people to come online, for instance. And the second is the role of the government. What role does the government have and what role should it play? Let me talk to you about infrastructure. Now, when we're talking about small businesses in, you were saying 500 town cities, etc., is there sufficient infrastructure available even if the innovation is being done by the companies? Is the infrastructure available to be able to reach them? And if not, and I think we know the answer to that, how are companies overcoming that to be able to reach the end consumer?
See, on the infrastructure front, let's just take the mobile reach. The infrastructure providers are actually looking at new growth areas because for them the traditional growth areas have kind of slowed down or kind of not growing, right? So for them the only way they would grow is actually moving to the rural areas. So on the infrastructure front it will catch up sooner than later, and I'm pretty confident about it, right? The other point which actually Vipin made, right? I think the growth really would come in the SME market, right? And once infrastructure catches up, I think we're going to see a real boom out there. And it's, as I said, it's going to happen much sooner than we think it is.
So less than 1% are dismal numbers, Adil. In a country like India, do you need to necessarily, even as fintech companies are innovating and growing, in a country like India, do you still need to have the marrying of offline with online and digital?
So I think retail, which I specialize in, which Bank Bazaar specializes in, only requires the mobile. I'll give you 2 data points. So Max Life has a press release where it says that 21% of its life insurance business is acquired via the internet, 21%. We have heard bank CEOs say, a third of their retail sourcing is now happening paperless or on the internet. So I think the retail story is very, very different. And I think what has happened well for retail at least is that the ecosystem which has been built around the India stack, right? There are 1,000 startups which are growing on that ecosystem. And that ecosystem is a world-class ecosystem, whether you want to make payments with UPI, whether you want to use e-sign, whether you want to use eKYC. And I see this government pushing, right, saying we built the greatest infrastructure available. Now 1,000 startups should bloom and make use of this infrastructure.
Sure. Okay. I want to talk also about data security. I do know, there's a lot of talk around data security, particularly in a country like India, but it's no different globally. What is happening in India? How is data being protected? What are companies doing? What perhaps is the role of the government when it comes to protecting data? And as the innovation happens, there are newer areas, there are new ways to figure in terms of how consumers' data needs to be protected. What's happening on that?
The urban consumer tends to be probably a lot more savvy, right? So he knows how to protect his data. But as this spread more across the country and the rural consumers, right? They probably are not aware of what kind of risks they're carrying, right? So I think it will again come to the companies in this space. How do they kind of ensure that the data security of those consumers is taken care of? And it's a very important thing, and everybody's paranoid about it, and everybody's watching it very closely. And morning, the executive director of RBI also mentioned, like RBI is looking at it very closely, right? They're monitoring what's happening there very closely, and every time there's a global incident that happens, and it comes into the headlines, everybody's like, okay, right? So it's very important from that perspective.
Okay, fair enough. We're winding down on this panel. So let me come to you first, Adil. Even as we're talking mobile, even as we're talking innovation, digital, etc., what percentage of businesses and people who are using fintech are urban and young? And what are companies like yourself doing to be able to convert it to reach small businesses which are outside of tier 2, tier 3 towns?
If you ask us what our role at Bank Bazaar is, right, to give a simple interface, be it in a graphical user interface, be it in a vernacular, but a simple interface that anyone should be able to use it to access a financial product. So we want to create that kind of user experience that the person is, wow, I got my mutual fund in 3 minutes, or I got my car insurance in 1 minute, or I got a personal loan in 5 minutes. I think that's what we think we're bringing to the table.
Okay, let me come to you, Manavjit. Now, he's talking about how loans are becoming instantaneous, at least the demand for loans has become instantaneous. I want to broad base the question to you and ask you to talk to our viewers through the show about why they should be using fintech when it comes to accessing the finance, accessing loans, making payments, paying bills, etc. And what is the biggest benefit really for small businesses to go digital?
The most important aspect, first of all, when we talk about finance, so like money is a derived need. So all you need then money for that car, for that maybe travel, or for your business. So when you're using technology, we're leveraging technology. So one, what you're bringing in is predictability in the whole process. So in my opinion, the most important part here is when you leverage technology, so it brings in predictability in that transaction, so where you can get a loan from. That is, and secondly, the speed. But today, the consumer is not looking at only information. You want to transact. You want the money in account fast. So speed is important aspect, and second is the predictability. That's where I think if they leverage or they use technology, they can definitely be immensely benefiting from the whole process.
Okay, Bipin, MobiKwik is in the hot seat, whether it's GST or demonetization, a lot is changing on the ground. For small innovators who are watching our show, watching our interview, what would you have to say to them about keeping abreast of all the changes? Because competition is definitely increasing, innovation is increasing, the way business is being done is being completely disrupted.
So I think, it's a good question. I think there is a huge opportunity for any company which is either started in the last 6 months or starting now in the fintech space in India, simply because I think the gap between what is required, not just from large banks as well as large NBFCs, insurance companies, to mutual funds, to even I would say companies of our scale, which include wallets and payment companies. There is just so many areas of innovation, whether you look at insurance, whether you look at lending, and when you start looking at loans, you start looking from small business loans to consumer loans to P2P lending, to enabling your neighborhood store to start accepting payments and building a network of retail. I think there's just huge opportunity, and I think the one advice which I would like to give is very clearly that partner as much as you can because all of the companies are open for business, open for partnerships, just because there is just so much opportunity.
Okay, quick last word is what I'm going to give you, Srini. As part of Nasscom, I know the point was raised earlier about how India still has a long way to go when it comes to possibly mirroring what's happening in the globe. But would it be beneficial for us, given how different India is in terms of the villages, the large population being unbanked, to try and achieve digital and going completely digital of fintech?
That's inevitable. That's going to happen, right? I think we still haven't even scratched the surface, or the proverbial, what we're seeing is tip of the iceberg. I think, but what's going to happen more as we go forward is, while fintech is going to create new markets, which probably the big banks can't cater to, but big banks have their own strengths. I think what we're going to see going forward is a lot of co-creation, right? I think there's going to be a lot of collaboration, which we're seeing already, where the big banks are reaching out to the fintech startups and are co-creating solutions to create new markets. And I think that's a trend, trend we see increasing. And I think, as I said, there's a huge market out there.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us here tonight. Completely out of time on this panel on fintech and how small businesses are accessing finance and how the industry is changing. If you have any feedback for us, you have any questions for us, you can always write in at leadersoftomorrowtimesgroup.com. Tweet at me at Sunanda_J or LOT_ET now, or leave your comments on our Facebook page, Leaders of Tomorrow on ET now. You can also call us on the number you see on your screen. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good night.